Welcome to the From Burnout to Recovery show with your host, Dr. Kate. This is where your journey to burnout recovery starts. Are you feeling overwhelmed or like work has become unmanageable? Join me and my guests for open and honest conversations about burnout recovery from the comfort of the front porch. I am here to help you build your resilience and prepare you for burnout in a whole new way through a variety of perspectives. Move past the idea that burnout can only be addressed by avoidance and work to integrate recovery into your daily life. Relax, take a breath. The From Burnout to Recovery show starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the From Burnout to Recovery show with Dr. Kate on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Kate, and of course, I am always excited to welcome you to the show today. As I love to remind you at the beginning of every episode, if you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, do so now. Leave a 5-star rating, and I would love to see a review about what your favorite part of the show is. Today, we are going to be joined by our guest, Olenski Johansen. Erica has proven that self-care, advocacy, and servant leadership cannot just help heal, but also help inspire and motivate meaningful industry change. After spending a career in healthcare, Erica found herself divorced from an alcoholic and supporting her infant son as his primary caregiver in his brain cancer recovery after being diagnosed at only 5 months old. Despite the odds, Erica persevered through burnout and depression to become an Ironman in September of 2021 and was recognized by the healthcare industry as a leading voice on patient and caregiver advocacy in March of 2022. Additionally, as a way to honor her son's experience and give back to families who have had medical trauma impact their lives, Erica is launching a nonprofit called Artist to provide hospitalized children and their families with access to coloring materials during inpatient hospitalizations and personalized artwork that inspires healing. Erica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yes. Well, I am excited to get to know you a little bit more and your journey and what you're doing for so many amazing people out there. But to just get us started, tell us a little bit more about yourself, the impact that burnout has had on your life and your journey to recovery.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think about and reflect on the most, especially over the last few years, and what burnout has meant for me. Burnout was so intimately connected with my healing journey. Mm-hmm. I learned a tremendous amount about myself through my burnout experience in particular. I learned about the window of tolerance. I learned that there's this state of being that exists that I kind of forgotten about when I was living in this fight or flight world of having to support my son through his cancer diagnosis and treatment and recovery, and then also supporting my older son. I forgot that this space existed for people in between, wanting to do things nonstop and completely checking out. That you can be calm and not tired or exhausted. Yeah. And so as I've learned more about what burnout's meant for me in the last few years, I've been a lot more intentional about how my energy is spent day to day. And so much of that was, of course, informed through these experiences that I've had. Probably to get started and to go backwards a little bit, the big event that occurred about 3 years ago, or a little bit longer than 3 years ago, was my 5-month-old son was diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer. And cancer, unfortunately, is relentless. And even an NED status or no evidence of disease doesn't mean that you're out of the woods. And more often than not, especially with, cancer treatments, the cancer treatment itself in some ways can be even more destructive than the diagnosis initially. And so that's been a learning experience for me as his primary caregiver now, is kind of managing the fallout from all of the trauma and the impact of the treatment itself. My son is deaf in his left ear and reduced hearing in his right, which qualifies him as a deaf individual in the community. So I've learned a lot about alternative communication styles. He's also considered nonverbal. So we use augmentative assistance for communication often. We have a talker device that he uses. So I've learned a lot about language acquisition over the last few years as well. And learned, like I said, a lot about how my own skills coping through all of that have, led me to a space now where I can channel a lot of the energy that was so, anxiety ridden previously into really productive and constructive uses. And that are some that are frankly strategic and differentiating in the marketplace too, which is exciting.
Yeah. I definitely want to hit a place where we talk a little bit more about kind of your strategies and implementations to this piece. But one of the things that you first said initially that I think is so important for our listeners to hear, so I want them to like bring this back for them, was that there is a space that's in between like the go and like the hustle of life and that feeling absolutely fatigued and exhausted, that where we're not in fight, we're not in flight, we're also not in like freeze or flop, but that's that place in between where there's calm. And I guess for me, I think of it as harmony. When I hit that space, I always think of myself as being in harmony with life and how things are going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I notice this often too, if I sit down to do something that I enjoy, like something creative, if I'm journaling or painting, am I exhausted when I sit down to do it? Am I tired? And if I am, that's my cue to myself that maybe I'm a little bit out of balance and not self-caring enough. And I need to probably lean in more into the self-care of things, which may or may not be the journaling exercise itself.
Right.
But it's just being aware of that space of I need to do more of the other things that I know allow me to have the bandwidth that affords me that frame of mind. And that fatigue is a cue to me that that's where I am.
Yeah. What are some of the strategies that you use to support yourself, day to day at this point to help, keep yourself out of that state of burnout?
Well, I made this mistake previously and pretty intensely. Amidst the COVID pandemic and finding myself a newly single mom with 2 boys on quarantine, and one being considered now clinically medically fragile, I found myself running again. That was my kind of immediate self-care was I've got all this nervous energy. I'm going to go run and I'm going to go do these activities because they make me feel better, which I'm sure did a lot of good. So I don't want to lessen the value of those experiences at all. However, leaned into that really hard. And I wound up ultimately training for an Ironman and achieved that goal, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
But what was really apparent to me was as soon as I achieved that goal, the culmination of all of that energy hit me like a bunch of bricks or a brick wall. And I realized that strategy wasn't the most effective one because I had neglected some other areas, because I had just leaned into this very active, go do something as my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Now, in hindsight, I think that approach helped lessen the blow of the trauma I experienced. It kind of, the way I describe it is it stretched it out like a putty. So instead of having someone just roll up a ball of putty and throw it at you, they kind of stretched it out and like tossed it at you, and it kind of just slinks around.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt as bad. It's still there though. It might be annoying. I might get stuck in things. But it definitely helped in terms of lessening the blow with that. That was very interesting for me to go through that experience and be really truly humbled by, hitting a brick wall and frankly hitting depression too, and an experience that I thought would be really redeeming and celebratory was much more depressive than I have expected. So coming out of that and coming out of the fog of that and recalibrating with, more balanced strategies, making sure that I wasn't leaning so far into the high adrenaline endurance activities, but counterbalancing those with things that would also bring me down has been much more intentional and much more productive too in the fallout of that.
Absolutely. I'm curious how the development of August Artists has come about, and even how that has like impacted you in your burnout recovery.
So one of the things that I learned when I was in the hospital, when there was no place to go run and no place to go get energy out, as a caregiver that was available to me at that time,
Mhm.
was how, therapeutic arts was,
Mhm.
the activity of art. And coloring books, families and parents will use coloring books. Sometimes they'll use the arts and crafts rooms. They have, lots of activities a lot of the time in children's hospitals in particular that are engaging. So those things are really great. But one of the things that I found particularly helpful and impactful was a very simple activity of using window crayons on the
Mm.
window to the hospital room
Mhm.
itself. Sometimes you're not really able or afforded the luxury of leaving the room.
Right.
Either you're not feeling well, or you're on kind of a quarantine environment and you really aren't accessible to the fun amenities in the
Mhm.
hospital. Sometimes you have to kind of just hang out where you're at. And so having something accessible in that space, but then also the ability to personalize that space was really one that I found therapeutic and kept me busy until 2 or 3 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning as I was frankly contemplating my son's mortality, my own, and just this concept of legacy. Like, where do you go from experiencing a lot of trauma, and what do you do with
Mhm.
yourself after all of that? And so I learned that many of the nurses in the hospital facility were actually paying for the crayons themselves
Mhm.
to make these things available for the families. And so as I was thinking about these questions and having this experience that was very therapeutic, it occurred to me in a thought exercise that maybe there's a part of this legacy that exists in making this available to more families.
Mhm.
And having spent a career in healthcare innovation and healthcare technology and talking about patient engagement initiatives and
Yeah.
talking about outcomes-based care, what emerged was this kind of serendipitous intersection between this very intense and personal experience of
Mhm.
art therapy and the future of healthcare and where it can go in terms of supporting not just the patients themselves, but the families surrounding them. And so what ultimately came from that was, August Artists was formed to, one, provide access to these materials, so
Mhm.
that every family that comes into the hospital and has to spend a long-term stay has access to those things, but also the opportunity really to commemorate the artwork that's created. One of the things that happens when you leave the hospital room is the artwork goes away, and
Right.
you have some of the most formative experiences of your lifetime occur in walls that you don't know.
Mhm.
And it makes it hard to reconcile those experiences in terms of what I've learned about trauma when you can't necessarily bridge those moments in your mind with and reintegrate them very easily into the real
Yeah.
world. It just seems so abstract and so foreign. So one of the things I'm hoping to do with August Artists is help create a bridge for families to visually connect those two spaces,
Mhm.
and hopefully use that both art as a therapy itself and the experience of it, but that you also can bridge that visual cue from the space you had this moment in, and you can
Mhm.
celebrate that when you get home, and you can
Mhm.
honor that experience was as real as any other moment that you would
Yeah.
have, and hopefully help heal and use it as a tool towards your healing.
Yeah. What an absolutely amazing mission. I think, I mean, and just in awe of just the support that it offers families while they're in the hospital. But I think really the piece of providing that connection when they leave and go home, and how to, like, to processing the experience of being in that long-term stay, and the trauma that can come from that in those pieces. Are there ways that we or the listeners can support this mission with August Artists?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few ways. You of course can go to our website, augustartist.org, and you're welcome to go learn about our initiative in more detail. You can see the mission and vision, and some of the things we've shared there. Another thing you can do is when you create artwork yourself, maybe it's something you make on your own window at home. You can share that with your social network and tag August Artists with that in a hashtag. So what I really hope that comes from all of this is that we're not just celebrating the artwork that happens in these very specific moments. Of course, they're welcome and honored, but I really want to reframe the way we think about healing and more thoughtfully integrate that with as a support mechanism for all of the wonderful advancements that have happened in medicine and technology that are advancing healthcare today. And I think that there's just this untapped opportunity in terms of really achieving long-term health outcomes, not just for the patient, but for their families as well. And the impact that that has will only become more articulated as technologies become more advanced and AI gets integrated and all these other cool things become more accessible. We'll really start to see the true impact of programs like this, where art and music and movement truly are healing modalities and a critical and essential part of the healing process and recovery process.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm wondering what advice you might give a listener who is listening to this and are like, okay, I'm hearing like art can help me in my healing in this aspect, but like I'm not an artist. I'm all about the stick figures. Like, how might they get started in supporting themselves in like an artistic process to support their healing?
Yeah, I think art more generally truly is any form of expression. It could be something you draw, which is fairly straightforward and how we usually think about it. It also could be the way we express ourselves, if that's writing or singing or speaking or even just talking. Talk therapy, right, is a form of art and expression.
Absolutely.
The other piece to this, and this is what I learned too in terms of training and training as an endurance athlete, is movement and training. That's a form of art and expression, and there's a strategy to it, but there's improvisation involved with it as well, and there's a magic to what's possible in any given moment with it, which I think is the beauty and the magic of art and artful expression in general. So my advice, I would say, is, figure out what that art is for you and, just lean into that and be unapologetic about investing in those things. Because like I said earlier with the window of tolerance concept, the investment you make in areas like that give you energy, that allow you to metabolize emotions, is enormous in its payoff, because it helps you expand that window of tolerance and makes that space of what's calm but not tired infinitely more accessible.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Art can be so many different ways of expressing yourself. And so remembering that you're probably already doing something that is artistic and just lean into that a little bit more. Absolutely. Erica, if you were to offer our audience members one additional piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say, besides being mindful about your energy and how you're investing your time, and of course, I think it goes without saying a little bit, but being graceful with yourself too, and how you spend that time. My other advice too would be, be unapologetic in defending your time and having boundaries. And, it's okay to tell people no, and it's okay to not feel guilty when you want to spend time doing something that makes you feel good, and you have to tell somebody else no to be able to do that. That is totally okay. So my advice would be be unapologetic with the boundaries and know that you're supported and in support of your best self by investing in things that bring you energy and allow you to expand that window of tolerance, because the payoff might not be immediate, but you'll see it fall out in terms of the next steps. You'll see later on, oh, I'm glad that I was able to respond to this situation in this way. Had I not done X, Y, and Z the week before, I wouldn't have been in the right mind space to respond the way that I did. And I think that's where we really start to see the value of those investments.
Yeah, that's so great. So beyond, managing your own energy and time and thinking about that, but unapologetically setting those boundaries so that you can maintain that time for yourself and be able to show up the way you want to in spaces, and recognizing that you were able to do that because you've set the boundary, I think is really important. A great reminder for our listeners.
Exactly.
Yes. Where can our listeners connect and find out more about you?
Absolutely. So I am on Twitter and Instagram. You can reach me at the Great Chalupa, which is kind of a fun story on its own. Feel free to message me or tweet to me if you want to know more about that one. But it's THEGR, the number 8, CHALUPA. And I tweet a lot about, family-centered care and healthcare, especially. And I do try to share a lot about our patient experience and caregiver experience day to day on the Great Chalupa Instagram account as well. So would love to have you guys follow me there as well and join a conversation about all of those things.
That's beautiful. And of course, we have links to that available for you all in the show notes. Erica, thank you again for being on the show today.
It was such an honor. Thank you so much.
I am so thankful for Erica being on the show today. And how amazing was it to learn a little bit more about August Artists and the mission behind that. And I think the incorporation of art into our healing process, and remembering that art and being artistic comes across in so many different ways. So whether it's you're talking, you're writing, you're drawing, you're dancing, you're singing, you are incorporating art and being an artist into your life, and that is impacting your ability to continue to heal from your burnout. So, dear listeners, we are going to move into our recovery moment. And before we do, I'd like to remind you to please subscribe to the show. Make sure that you're leaving a 5-star rating and a review about what is your favorite part of listening to the podcast, as well as be sure to share this with someone who also needs to hear this message. Today, we are going to focus on how to have a daily practice to increase love and happiness. So let's get started with our recovery moment. So once again, our recovery moment is a practice for continued love and happiness. So each day, it can be very helpful to remember that we as humans all want the same thing. We all want to be happy. Everyone we meet and everyone we know wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be loved. There is no one who does not want love. Deep down, we all want to be loved. And deep down, we all want to feel connected with each other, with our community, and with all beings. We all want the same thing: to be happy, to be loved, and to feel connected. Also helpful each day to cherish yourself and others, to appreciate yourself and to appreciate others. We can do this by noticing any judgments that we have of ourselves, criticisms or condemnations of ourselves, and seeing if we can soften those judgments or simply let them go. Noticing any judgments that we have of others, sharp criticisms, condemnation, and seeing if we can soften those judgments. Can you let them go? Breathing in, cherishing yourself. Breathing out, cherishing others. Breathing in, cherishing yourself. Breathing out, cherishing others. Breathing in, loving yourself. Breathing out, loving others. And during the day, extending that attitude to everyone you meet. We are all the same. We all want the same things: to feel happiness, to feel loved, to feel connected. Extending this attitude: I cherish you, I appreciate you, and I cherish myself as well. I appreciate myself also. Returning over and over to the sense of appreciation, cherishing with each breath and feeling, always feeling grateful for each day and our experience and our connection and love to the other humans around us. Remember, for more recovery moments, you can follow me at Dr. Kate Steiner on Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to the From Burnout to Recovery show on YouTube. Once again, I'm so grateful to our guest, Erica Olenski Johansen, and I'm grateful to each of you for listening. Thank you for joining us today on the From Burnout to Recovery show with Dr. Kate on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Kate, and I wish you peace on your journey. Thank you for joining me on the front porch today. Remember that you can download your free resources on how to recover from burnout on my website, drkatesteiner.com. And as always, be well, my friends.